You're listening to Season 1, Episode 3 of Vixen, a Black Beauty and Pop Culture podcast. If you enjoy what you hear today, please leave a review anywhere you listen to podcasts. Today's episode is on Nicole Narain, infamous model and ex-Playmate. Now, let's start the show. Nicole was born July 28, 1974 in Aurora, Illinois. Her mother, Rose Narain, is Afro-Guyanese, and her father, whose name is unknown to the general public, is East Indian and Chinese Guyanese. Nicole was one of 3 children raised by their single mother. So there's not much out there about Nicole's early life, but I was able to find out that she did start modeling when she was about 12 years old. As a child, she had a really bubbly and outgoing personality, so she was always very popular amongst her peers. She ran track and she won Homecoming Queen 2 years in a row. So right after Nicole graduated from high school, she moved to Chicago to pursue her modeling full time. So there's also not much of a record of what Nicole was doing from 1992 to 2000. I'm sorry, guys. There's just not a lot of information on her early life, but things do get a little bit more informative later on into her 20s. So I don't really know what she was doing from 1992 to 2000, but she was living in Chicago, and at some point she worked for General Mills, and I think she probably was just modeling on the side at this time, but nothing had really taken off for her yet. One night in 2000, Nicole was out at Circus, which was a really popular nightclub in Chicago. It was very similar to like a One Oak or a Dre's, it was a big club like that. So that night she meets Kevin Custer, who was the senior photo editor at Playboy at the time, and he told her that she had to pose for Playboy. Like, he saw her and was like, yes, you are Playboy material. So she takes his word, and she moves to LA a couple months after meeting him that night. It didn't take long for Nicole to start making things happen once she landed in LA. So as soon as she got there, Kevin ended up casting her immediately in Playboy, and she was in the Girls of Mardi Gras editorial, and that was in Playboy's March 2000 issue. So she didn't appear in the magazine again until 2002, and in 2002 she was the Playmate of the Month for the January issue. So after her centerfold debut in January, she went on to star in 3 of Playboy's video documentaries. After her very first appearance in Playboy in 2000, Nicole started booking a lot of music videos and small acting gigs. I think the video that you all will most recognize her from is LL Cool J's Love You Better. She was his love interest in that video. She was also in Play by David Banner. She was in Got Me a Model by RL from Next, and she was in Baby by Fabulous. If you guys look at my Instagram page, the Vixen Memoirs, Nicole's posted on there a lot. She was in a lot of videos at this time. She was also in I Don't Want to Know by Mario Winans. Like, she was in a lot of stuff. I think after Playboy the first time in 2000, they hadn't called her back, so she was doing a lot of videos at that point, and then kept doing them once they got her back in 2002. So she was a pretty popular video model. In 2003, Nicole was on fire. She was in 5 of Playboy's editorials that year, and she ended up being a cast member for Playboy's edition of Fear Factor. So she did 2 more Playboy video documentaries after that, and her very last appearance in the magazine was the January 2006 issue. So she doesn't appear again after that. So let's go back to 2002. So at this point, Nicole's still fairly new to LA. Her career is gearing up, and she was in high demand at this point. She's partying with her friends at the LA Playboy Mansion when actor Colin Farrell walks in. So in 2006, Nicole was featured in Colin Farrell's True Hollywood Story episode, and I watched it, and this is what she said about the moment she met him. She's kind of dramatic. It's funny, but she says, I remember him walking in, and I looked at my girlfriend and was like, who is that? I had never seen him before, didn't know who he was. He's just devilishly handsome, so of course that was the first thing that attracted me. And then the accent, I was like, wow, you gotta be kidding me. So after they met, Colin and Nicole quickly became a couple. 2 months in, Nicole says the two of them were hanging out at her place when out of the blue, he suggested that they record themselves having sex. So Nicole agrees and they grab her camcorder and they cut it on. The relationship moved quickly and was clearly passionate. She says, "We just hit it off instantly. He's a free spirit, just like me. It's just two people enjoying each other physically." So their relationship lasted about 6 months. And Nicole says that it fizzled out because he just wasn't in LA a lot. He's Irish and he probably I think he was living in New York at the time as well. So the two decided to just be friends. A few months after going their separate ways, they ran into each other at a club, and she says that he asked her to make a copy of their tape together for him. She says that she did make a copy of it, but she was never able to get it to him. So they break up, go their separate ways. Nicole goes back to her regular life. So she's modeling, she has a couple acting gigs, and she's hanging out with her girls. So at this point, Nicole she's all over the blogs, she's all over the tabloids, like she's getting spotted at a lot of parties and things like that. So she's partying and, she's in demand. So shortly after the last time her and Colin ran into each other, she heard rumors about a tape of the two of them circulating around. She says the first thing she did was call him. She was crying, and he assured her that the tape couldn't be released without their consent, so there was nothing to worry about at the moment. So here is where things get a little unclear with this situation. So quick disclaimer, a lot of this is alleged. So their case, which we'll get into, between Nicole and Colin, it ended in a mutual settlement. So I cannot be sure if there was proof of certain things. From what I've researched, there is no public evidence that Nicole leaked the sex tape herself. I just want to say that. There are things that kind of implied that she did, but I myself have not seen any proof that she did. So we don't know if she played a part in the tape leaking, but she did attempt to capitalize on it later. And that's typically what people do when sex tapes leak. Not everybody, obviously, but a lot of people do try to capitalize on a sex tape being released of them, especially like people in entertainment. So it doesn't mean that just because she tried to capitalize off of it, it doesn't mean that she released it herself or that she helped to do it. It just, it's her body. Like, why wouldn't she make money of it? So anyway, I just have to say a lot of this is alleged that we're about to get into. So anyway, back to the story. In July of that same year, Colin sues the porn distributor, this company called ICG, to stop them from selling the tape. And he was actually granted a restraining order barring any release of the video. Nicole was named as a co-defendant on the suit that he filed against ICG. And in a sworn statement, he said that he tried to get Nicole involved with his lawyer so that they could sue ICG together, but she refused. So assuming that that's true, and I hope it is because he said it in a sworn statement, that action is what made Colin suspicious that Nicole was involved with the leak. So regardless of this lawsuit that barred them from releasing it, portions of the video still became available on a couple porn sites. So Colin then goes and lists David Hahn Schmidt, who's a Hollywood agent producer type guy, as a co-defendant as well. So this is how David handled it. David did not deny his involvement at all. He's like, I have a written agreement that authorizes me to procure the sale and distribution of the Colin Farrell, Nicole Narain sex video. He did not want to say how he got his hands on the tape, but he's just like, look, I have permission to distribute this tape. So Nicole, on the other hand, she's like, I had nothing to do with it. She denies all involvement in the tape going public. As for David Schmidt, she said that she only spoke to him one time, and she told him that he did not have permission to release the tape. So I don't know how he got this like procured statement that he has, but like somebody in this situation is lying. I just don't know who it is. So Nicole tells People magazine that whether or not the tape had been stolen or lost couldn't be discussed, and she said her lawyer's investigating it. She then said that either is possible. She said, I've moved 3 times in the last 2 months and all the parties I had before I left. So she's like implying that like she has no idea, and that it could have possibly been stolen. So during the scandal and trial, Nicole lost out on plenty of modeling jobs. She lost out on a lot of video gigs. I think Playboy pretty much cut their ties with her. They canceled a lot of her appearances. And at this point, she spent a lot of time holed up in her condo in North Hollywood with her phone unplugged. And this is crazy because I actually remember this happening. I don't know how old I was. I had to have been like 12 or 13 when this happened, but you know, I grew up an only child, so I was always reading like tabloids at my grandma's house, and you know, I was always like very, very enthralled in pop culture. So I actually remember this, and the media kind of tore her a new one at this time. I didn't know a lot of the details, I probably just didn't understand them, but I do remember the media really, really tearing her apart at this moment. So the story just gets more and more bizarre after this, y'all. So Colin Farrell then sues Nicole's friend Candace Smith for conspiring with her to sell the sex tape. So he sues her friend because he thinks that they teamed up to release this tape. So Candace today is actually a pretty successful actress right now. But I forget which show she's been on, but I know that she has done really well. But at this time when this is going on, she was like a former Miss Ohio, and she was a model for the TV show The Price is Right. And she was also going to be on the upcoming season of Survivor. Remember when Survivor? I forgot about Survivor. So, I mean, she was like another person that was trying to get in the entertainment industry at the time. So Colin's lawyer told the press that Candace was now a main focal point of the case. So now Nicole herself has never publicly commented on Candace's alleged involvement. So I'm not really sure how Candace got involved in this. Candace does have a law degree though, and I'm pretty sure at the time that this happened, she already had her law degree. So she could have just like gave Nicole advice on like how to handle, you know, a crisis. Like it doesn't necessarily mean that she conspired with her, but I don't know. That's what I'm speculating. That's all speculation. I assume that she kind of gave her like some off the record legal advice or something. So I don't know, but whatever evidence Colin Farrell had on Candace, it just wasn't enough because the case was thrown out a month after it was filed. So all of this is going on. Her ex is suing her friend, and Nicole is working with a company called Tridestin Television on a reality show about her life. So this never airs, but like this is what she was doing during this scandal. So the smoking gun, which I'm sure we're all familiar with, the smoking gun has legal documents on literally everything and everybody. I don't know how they do it, but so the smoking gun actually ended up obtaining the signed agreement between ICG, that the porn distributor, and Nicole. So obviously, this was used as an exhibit of evidence in the case on Colin's behalf. It's this signed agreement between ICG and Nicole. She would get $100,000, and then she would have $60,000 of her legal fees paid. And then if she won the case against Colin Farrell, Nicole would get a $3 million advance, and the video would be released. The copy only had Nicole's signature, but, and I quote, "Inside sources told the smoking gun that the terms of the contract had already been executed." So basically what that's saying is that Nicole, by the time they had got their hands on this document, Nicole had already received her $100,000 payout, and maybe she had already had her legal fees paid too. But this still doesn't mean that she released the tape. I know that sometimes with sex tapes and celebrity leaks and stuff like that, whatever company gets their hands on the tape will try to call the celebrity first and be like, "Hey, I have this tape of you, like, we'll give you $1 million if you let us release it, blah, blah, blah." So that could have happened. Like, they just called her, was like, "Hey, we have this tape of you. What do you want to do about it?" And she's like, "Okay, sign me up. Let me get this money." You know, that doesn't mean that she gave them the tape, is basically what I'm trying to say. Because I don't want to, you know, accuse nobody and nothing on my podcast. But you guys are free to think, like, make your own decision of the situation. I'm just saying it doesn't necessarily mean that she released it. It just means that she was trying to get her bread off of it. So anyway, back to the story. So after a long battle, the case was settled outside of the courtroom with an arbitrator in 2006. Nicole's lawyer told the New York Daily News the settlement was amicable and that they were able to completely resolve it. The terms of their agreement are confidential, so I'm not sure if someone had to pay someone or who was on the receiving end of the money. I'm assuming somebody paid somebody something. But nonetheless, the saga was pretty much over. Just Nicole was definitely very upset about the way she was portrayed throughout the ordeal. And like I said, I remember when this happened, and they really did tear her a new one in the media. So I can totally get, being painted as this, terrible person. And plus, I mean, Colin Farrell was one of the biggest actors at that time. He was insanely popular. And he's a white man. And Nicole is like this black woman that's coming up in the entertainment industry. And I think she was unfairly, pegged as like this villain in this situation. So, yeah. So she's very upset about how, she's being portrayed in the media. And she said that she would forgive him, Colin being him, if he apologized. And she said maybe we'd make another tape, a longer version. So she was like, still be with him. But anyway, so to piggyback off of what I said earlier, I mean, there's no proof that Nicole leaked the tape on her own. But if you do look at that signed agreement, which you guys can find online, and her refusal to join in and sue the porn distributor, ICG, there is a possibility that she did. Muriel Miller-Young, professor of feminist studies at UCal Santa Barbara, coined the term illicit eroticism. And this is how she describes it. The illicit eroticism economy symbolically and strategically produces gender identities through the commodification and manipulation of private sex acts. In some of her works, Professor Miller-Young shows how young black women in the sex industry, and that includes models, video vixen, strippers, and porn stars, y'all, that's all the umbrella, employ hypersexuality and illicit eroticism to achieve mobility, erotic autonomy, and self-care. Basically what this quote is saying, and what illicit eroticism means, is that some women will use sex to get in a position that they deem better than their current one, to get further in life or get further in their career, but it doesn't mean that they don't enjoy the act or feel taken advantage of by the act. I personally, in my opinion, I don't think there's anything wrong with capitalizing, through sex. I mean, women have been, this is a tale as old as time. Women have been capitalizing through their bodies, their beauty for years. That's never going anywhere. I don't personally have a problem with people, using what they got to get what they need. You do what you have to do. And if your beauty and your looks can help you and propel you to where you want to go, who are we to tell you not to use it? So anyway, at this time, like I said, Colin Farrell was at the prime of his career. He was definitely one of the hottest male actors in Hollywood. Nicole was interested in acting, and if she really did release this tape, she might have thought that peddling their tape would grant her access into higher Hollywood circles and get her better gigs. And I mean, sometimes that works when people take that kind of approach. And I mean sometimes, because it's definitely not all the time, but we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. So after the settlement, Colin Farrell is a guest on the Irish TV program The Late Late Show, and he revealed that he received an offer of, wait for it, $5 million to sell the whole tape to a porn company. He didn't name the company, but obviously he turned it down. Nicole, on the other hand, started to get her feet wet as an actress a little bit more after the sex tape. She landed small roles in One-on-One, Mad TV, Entourage, and American Heiress. She also dated Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit for a while, and then she briefly dated K-Fed after his divorce from Britney Spears. Fred Durst claims that he dated Britney Spears. Britney Spears denied this. She's like, hell no, I ain't date Fred Durst. So I mean, if she did, I believe Britney, but if she did, then like that would mean that her and Britney Spears, that Britney Spears and Nicole have two common exes, but whatever. So the sex tape press like kind of put her on a high. She was catapulted, into a media sensation, but I don't really think a lot came out of it as far as propelling her career. It was just, she was always being talked about. So after the sex tape press wore off, Nicole says the notoriety basically ruined her life. She developed a sex addiction, mostly chronic masturbation, and that made her miss several meetings, auditions, and appointments. In 2009, Nicole was a cast member on VH1's Sex Rehab with Dr. Drew. She did promotional press, and she was a guest on the Joy Behar show, and she said, "I really try hard not to think about masturbating too much. I had a moment where I really could not get out of bed one day because it was constant. That was an exhausting day. I didn't even want to eat food because that was my food for the day. It was exhausting and it was scary because it consumed my entire day. So it's possible that the sex addiction that Nicole developed was fueled by her career fizzling out post-sex tape. As she says, she feels like it ruined her life. So there's no telling what this time period did to her psyche. The last paparazzi sightings that I've seen of Nicole show her leaving clubs. She looks like she's having fun. She's obviously a little tipsy. But the very last one I've seen of her is her telling TMZ to be nicer to her. And she's saying, I know I've got a label on my head or whatever, and you guys got a job to do, but be fucking nice. She mentioned some mean articles they'd written about her, and I think this is a glimpse of how she might have felt about the attitude towards her and the tape. I actually looked up, once I saw that video, I actually looked up her name and like the headlines that TMZ was writing about her at the time, and they were rude as hell to her. Like the what was written about her was really, really nasty. So I totally get her feeling like, so defensive, towards the press. In her essay, Hip Hop Honeys and the Hustlers, Black Sexualities in the New Hip Hop Pornography, Professor Miller Young again discusses the sexual agency of Black women in the business of sex. She makes a point about Black girls using, and I quote, fetishized hypersexuality to strategically work with and through modern capitalism, which I think is important here. So we talked a little earlier about Nicole's possible motivation for allegedly leaking the tape. And here's another condensed version. Here's another quote from Professor Miller Young. This one's condensed, though. These women are seeking access, recognition, mobility, independence, and sexual pleasure as they practice an everyday politics of survival. They are actresses trying to gain access to the entertainment industry, sex radicals exploring exhibitionism and polyamorous sex, budding entrepreneurs hoping to control the means of production, and more. Coming from a variety of class and social contexts, they are sometimes casual laborers in it for the short term, or professionals carefully constructing a career with an eye on the long-term big picture. Through illicit eroticism, they mobilize deviant, outlaw racialized sexuality as vehicles of consumption and labor, as well as contestation and consent. So this kind of goes back to what we were saying about people using, women specifically using their beauty and their looks for upward mobility. I believe that this is an opportunity for us to get really real about this kind of stuff. So let's get real, y'all. Let's be brutally honest. So the aftermath and effects of a sex tape are way more negative, in my opinion, for Black women than they are for their counterparts, even if their partner in the tape is not Black. So that means basically that when Black women have sex tapes, and there truly have not been a lot, there have not been a lot of prominent Black women who have had sex tapes come out where they're like this big, media thing. So when you think of the women who poke out in your head, the Black women who have had this happen to them in your head, they are not, there's not as many as white women and other women. And the effects of what happened are way more crucial and way more harsh than their counterparts. Just saying. So anyway, actually, surprisingly enough, I was really, really surprised at this because I had no idea. So 2 years after Colin and Nicole's sex tape thing happens, Kim Kardashian's happened 2 years later. Her sex tape with Ray J made a huge splash. I know you guys know that story. The situations are very similar. So the man is the more famous one with more to lose, at least at that time. And the women were accused of leaking the tape. So both Kim Kardashian and Nicole Narain were accused of leaking their own respective sex tapes. So the experience must have been obviously extremely traumatic and devastating for Kim Kardashian, but we all know how her life propelled after that tape. Her and her entire family's life completely changed after that sex tape. And these days, when I think of Kim Kardashian, I don't even think about that sex tape. That is not the first thing that crosses my mind, because she has parlayed herself into so many other avenues, ventures, and just all types of areas of pop culture. We don't have to get into that, but when I think about that, especially that only happened 2 years after Nicole Narain, I can't help but wonder, in my Carrie Bradshaw voice, why did this not happen for Nicole Narain? So a few years after Kim and Ray J, Mimi Foss of Love and Hip Hop fame also had a sex tape scandal. So I want to share a quote from My Job Is to Be a Bad Bitch, Locating Women of Color in Post-Feminist Media Culture on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. And this quote was written by Melvin Williams, who is a professor at Alabama A&M. And he discusses the aftermath of Mimi's tape. So let me just say, like, the fact that there are, you know, professional, like, high level, very intelligent studies on love and hip hop says a lot about, I love that. Like, I love that I can find something like this critical and this thought provoking on love and hip hop, because I mean, I just feel like it's great, because love and hip hop, you know, is a big part of pop culture, especially, you know, around this time, late 2010. So anyway, Professor Melvin Williams says, Mimi emphasized her role as a business owner in her decision to use sexual power for upward mobility in releasing a sex tape. Mimi declared to a critic of her decision, I can either let this tape run around for free, or I can be a fucking businesswoman about this shit and capitalize off it. End quote. So both of these women, now we're talking about Nicole Narain and Mimi Foss, they're both popular for modeling, and they both are popular for dating famous people. We know Mimi dated Stevie J. She was in Pharrell's Front End video, and I think she was in a couple other videos as well. So these are both women that, you know, are sort of known. At this time, Mimi is even further along than Nicole had been, because she had been starring in a hit reality TV show for 3 seasons by the time the sex tape came out. So people know who Mimi Foss is, right? So she did the same thing that Nicole allegedly did. And we all know that Mimi did have a part in the release of her sex tape, as we found out on the show. But similar to Nicole, nothing really happened for Mimi's career after that. She continued to be on Love and Hip Hop. She's still on it today. And I think she released like some special edition shower rods. But that was really it. Mimi was made fun of and laughed at by cast members, by the general public. I mean, it was like a key. The whole situation was a key. I mean, her sex tape co-star, that dude, whatever his name was, he even embarrassed her on the show as well. So the tape really didn't do anything for Mimi. Mimi was not able to capitalize off her labor, which was sex, at least not in the degree that Kim Kardashian was. And I think that that shows us clearly how sex tapes affect Black women differently. So even if you do believe that Nicole leaked this tape herself, and who, like, even if she did, take that out of the equation, Mimi also had a hand in leaking her tape. People accused Kim Kardashian of leaking her tape as well. Even if you take that aspect out of it, like, for someone to be able to propel themselves and their entire family into global superstars, become a pop culture icon from a sex tape, and for it to not happen for these 2 Black women as well, it's just very shady to me. Like, there's just something about that is just, you know, weird. So if we really want to get into some real tea, Nicole Narain is absolutely gorgeous. She's just as pretty as Kim Kardashian, who's also beautiful. She was incredibly sexy. Nicole was already known in Hollywood circles, similar to how Kim was. Kim was, you know, hanging around Paris, and hanging around Nicole. And, you know, Nicole already had a pretty successful career herself. She didn't come from money like Kim did, but she was, you know, had a lot going for her too. So why was she not catapulted into fame and offered opportunities? I mean, she might have been, and maybe she just didn't take any of them. Was there some kind of clause in the settlement that her and Colin Farrell made that barred her from capitalizing off of her newfound fame? Was it that Nicole didn't come from a rich family, didn't have a savvy mom, didn't know how to navigate Hollywood? I mean, it could have been a number of things, but I think it's just really interesting that the Kim Kardashian sex tape happened so shortly after Nicole. So we probably won't ever know, because Nicole is not active on social media and has not been since 2016. Her Instagram posts that are up show a completely different look than what we're used to seeing from her. She's still beautiful, but her style has definitely changed. After her stint on Sex Rehab with Dr. Drew, Nicole pretty much disappeared from Hollywood and from the scene completely. And I was a little concerned about recording this episode, because I feel like this is a great story. Nicole is gorgeous. I love her photos. I love posting her on Vixen Memoirs. And I think her story is really, really interesting, because a lot of people don't know that Colin Farrell's sex tape, you know, there was a Black woman that was involved with that. So I definitely wanted to share her story on here, but I was concerned about it, because I don't really have a happy ending to report for her, like for past episodes, like with Lola Falana and Jennifer Jackson. So she doesn't really have a happy ending that I know of. And there's possible that she's completely happy. She just don't want to be on social media. And that's what I hope it is. I hope she's okay. I definitely feel like it's still important to tell this story, even if I don't have happiness to report on, because with this podcast, we're here to tell stories about Black beauty, Black femininity, you know, just Black women in general. And everything is just not always as pretty and glamorous as it looks to us. So, I mean, this is reality. This is Nicole's life. And that's not to say, again, that's not to say that she's not perfectly fine and just doesn't want to be in the spotlight. But wherever she is, I do really hope that she's happy and thriving. And this is one of my favorite episodes. I definitely think these kinds of talks are super, super important. We're going to delve a little bit deeper into stuff like this throughout the episodes as we discuss different women. And I definitely want to bring other people on to talk about things like this that affect Black women that people don't really talk about. So I'm going to stop rambling. I feel like this is going to be a long one. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will see you on next week's episode. Bye. Okay, thank you guys so much for listening to Vixen. If you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a review. And if you have an idea for a submission, feel free to email me at VIXENPODCAST, VIXENPODCAST @gmail.com. I will be back next week with an all new episode.